Oh. All right. Bop, bop, bop. All right, folks. Welcome back to class. Wow. What a busy, chaotic week it's been the last 2 weeks. Really, the last 2 weeks were finals. And so, of course, I decided to let off on everyone because of finals. I wanted everyone to be able to have time to study for all their other courses and all of their other classes and grades that you're taking at this fine, fine establishment. However, here we are. We're back. We're back, folks, with our film studies course. Okay? And I've got a lot to go over considering, everything. So, where were we last, folks? In my last class, excuse me, I don't have a mic. So I gotta be really, really loud so you can hear me. Otherwise, you can't hear me, as usual. So forgive me if I'm a little too heavy on the ears, but I'm supposed to. I'm supposed to be as your instructor. So, there's nothing good about an instructor that's too quiet. Okay? So, as we were in our last class, we did a live script lab. Right? We did a script lab together, and we made a script about the man named Jack and how he was there to fix the air conditioning, right? And there's a happy story. I showed you all how to write a good. You guys made a wonderful script, and I really hope one of you guys takes it home and makes it a real film. You have everything you need here on campus to do so. So anyway. But before that, of course, earlier in the week, we were going over scenes 10 and 11 of Not Voracity, right? And our last scene ended with the wide shot of Diane, right, in her office late at night, surrounded by work, right? She's alone, and it's showing the heavy load that she has. And really, it's showing a great expression of her inward turmoil, right? The things that she's not dealing with, the heavy load that she's carrying, not so much of the workload, right, but the 30 years of nada, right? Of not looking in her heart, blah, blah, blah. Resolving unresolved trauma. Not that it's easy, but she had not done any work to fix that part of her life. So anyway, that's where we left off on scene 11. So now we're going to go into scene 12 and scene 13. Okay? Scene 12 and scene 13. Now these scenes are incredibly important because this is what we call the first contact. Right? This is the first time Diane is going to run into her son, who is now a homeless man out in the streets, right? And so, of course, the first scene, there's not going to be a lot of explanation. There's not going to be a lot of acknowledgement coming from her. This is the beginning stage of her climbing out of denial. So yeah, it's just the initial first contact. So anyway, here it starts, scene 12, right? Or scene 11 ended with her in her office. Okay, flash forward a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, right? She's still deep in work, and it's now, okay, and it's an evening time, okay? And it's evening in the city street, and she's just leaving her law firm, okay? And she just left the building, right? And it's downtown, you got the movement of downtown, the cars, the fast people walking by, it's compressed, people leaving work, phones ringing, traffic building. Glass doors open. Ding! Right? And there walks out Diane. She exits the law firm, as we said. Still mentally inside work at this point. She is. Okay? And her phone is in one hand, and her bag is over her shoulder in the other hand, and she's moving with urgency, right? Mama's got to go. Mama ain't got time. She ain't got time, you know. She don't have time for the kids. Mama's got to do business. Okay? Mama's on a go. On a goal. Okay? So that's what she's doing, right? And she's checking the time while she's walking, you know. Okay? It's 5:40 p.m. The time counts because this will, you know, give you a chronological understanding of what's going on throughout these next two scenes. Okay? And so she looks at her phone, and a notification behind it, ding, says dinner, 7:30, East Marrow, right? East Marrow Street is where she needs to get going. So she keeps moving, and she's already planning the next several hours in her head, right? She's a law firm consultant, so this woman is organized. She is productive. She is effective. She is in control, right, of the situation as far as tasks and things to get done. She's that kind of woman. She's a go-getter. Okay? All right, and so she keeps walking. She's walking down the busy downtown streets. The evening time, people are crazy. It's all over the place. You ever been to a big city? Well, let me tell you, the evening time, it's nuts. It's crazy. The city actually comes alive because everybody's off work. Everybody's ready for their R&R and you know, go to the movies and restaurants, or hell, maybe they're just waiting in traffic for 30 minutes to get home. Oh. But she's a smart woman. She leaves her car at home. She walks. Because everything's pretty close in this big city for her. So there's a crosswalk ahead as she's walking. There's a bus stop about a block down. And the city moves around her in an efficient, a very efficient pattern, as many cities do. And so does she. She moves in this very efficient pattern, right? Okay? And near the corner of an old building as she's walking by, a homeless man sits beside a makeshift setup. All right? And by him there is a shopping cart. There's a couple of blankets. There's some plastic containers. And a folding chair with one broken arm. Oh. Okay? This is symbolism, folks. This is symbolism. I don't have to explain it. You should know by now. Okay, but there's a folding chair with one broken arm. You know, I mean, what is that? Okay. FS. It's a big FS. Foreshadow. All right, anyway. Most people are passing her without looking. Of course, it's the big city. And they don't notice this homeless guy, right? Most people are passing him, not noticing him, whatever. There's a bum on the street. Who cares? I got to make my 12 o'clock. Or I got to make my 7 o'clock, right? For her. In her case. Okay, and then this homeless man stands up all of a sudden out of nowhere from sitting down. He gets up and he says, "Mom?" And she keeps walking. She's on a mission, right? She don't react. She doesn't even turn her head. She just keeps walking. But she heard. She heard it. But she considers it just as another city voice. And so she checks her phone again quickly while she's walking. Types something real fast. Then she hears it again. "Mom!" Emphasis, a little more emphasis this time. Still though. Still nothing from her. She speeds up now. She's starting to speed up a little bit. She heard it the second time and she's kind of, subconsciously her alert is going on, but on the surface she's just got to get to where she's got to get. Anyway, so she's trying to catch the bus light before it changes. And the homeless man, he watches her carefully, right? And he's not aggressive. He's not even that loud. And then one last time, he says, "Mom!" Right? And something about this last time she hears that basically herself being called out, "Mom!" That one lingers with her. You know, she definitely acknowledges it. Even though she keeps walking, she doesn't turn around. She doesn't turn around to look. Her back is still turned. But that word stays with her now, right? She took that experience in. Whether she wanted to or not, she was kind of forced to. Anyway, so the traffic noise dulls slightly, just enough. And she reaches the crosswalk and she waits. That wait signal's flashing. Still moving, still focused, still refusing to think about what she just heard. Okay? And behind her, that homeless man, her son, as we find out, right, slowly sits back in his camp, quietly, almost kind of disappointed. And then under his breath, to himself more than anyone else, we hear that, "I knew it was you. I knew it was you." And he sits back down, sad but comfortable, a sense of belonging, if you will. Anyway, the bus turns the corner up ahead, and Diane notices the bus, and she immediately picks up the pace. The city swallows the moment, but the whole world stopped there for a second. Anyway, she hurries up. She's got work mode on, dinner mode, schedule mode, okay? But something's still slightly off for her. It's small and unwanted, Anyway, and the walk signal counts down. 3, 2, 1. Okay? She crosses fast, crosses the street, never looking back. Never looking back. Enter into our next scene. Scene 13. Okay. Let me check my time here. Let me check our Zoomers. I hope our Zoom class is doing okay today, folks. I hope everybody is, by the way. It's a long day, Oh, okay. Yeah, we're good. We're good. We got another 13 minutes before I think we'll get kicked off Zoom. I never can tell. Funny enough, we got another 13 minutes. We're about to read scene 13. So here we go. This is scene 13. Okay, so now she's exiting the city street and it's nighttime. The city has now fully settled into its evening performance, if you will. There's a wet pavement reflecting restaurant lights and expensive coats. Valets opening doors for people, pretending not to notice. Diane now crosses the street towards an upscale restaurant tucked between glass office towers. Okay? Real fancy looking place. Still carrying the energy of work with her, her phone in her hand, checking the time again, making sure she's on time. She looks at her phone again, boom, 7:24 now. Time goes real quick in the city, pop, 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 real fast, okay? Anyway, so she slips her phone into her coat pocket, she exhales once, and centers herself, or tries to. What she just experienced inside, she's kind of freaking out, but she's, avoiding it. Anyway, so now we're in the upscale restaurant, okay? And inside there's warm amber lighting. You got your low jazz music drifting through the hidden speakers. Everything curated to feel intimate, right? Your average rich person, fancy restaurant. Your hoity-toity place, okay? A real hoity-toity place. And the clientele there around, everything from wealthy professionals, aging executives, carefully maintained marriages, and expensive loneliness fills the room. All these types of people, right, fill the room. And it's the kind of restaurant, really, where nobody raises their voice because everybody is already listening to themselves, right? Yeah, real superficial, And at a corner table sits this new character that we are introducing into our story, and his name is Christopher Ackland. Okay, Christopher Ackland is 54 years of age. Okay, silver beginning at the edges of his dark hair. He's well kept. He's elegant without trying too hard. and has the confidence of a man who has spent decades inside expensive rooms. And he stands as soon as Diane is walking through the restaurant, and as soon as she approaches, he stands up in a gentlemanly, in a way that feels practiced but sincere, right? And here starts Christopher's dialogue. Diane? She says, Christopher. And a polite handshake that almost becomes awkwardly formal. And they both realize it, and then they both kind of have small smiles, and then they sit down, right? And a waiter appears almost immediately, water poured, menus adjusted, the choreography of an upscale dining. Okay? Fancy place. Okay, and then there's a brief silence. Not uncomfortable yet, just unfamiliar. Now Christopher sits and studies her for a second, and he finally breaks the silence and he says, I have to admit, and he's half smiling, kind of half smiling, he says, I have to admit, you look just like your photos. And Diane raises an eyebrow, and she says, that's your opening line? And he says, I thought honesty was refreshing at our age. That gets a real laugh. Excuse me. I thought honesty was refreshing at our age, and that makes her laugh inside, right? And so she says, at our age is a dangerous phrase to use this early, right? And they both kind of smile, and it becomes warm. The conversation slowly is becoming a little warmer, because it's pretty cold and awkward at first. Obviously, it's the first time these two characters have ever met. It must have been through a dating app or some sort, And so it's their first time meeting and all of that, and so now it's starting to get warm. Pretty quickly, actually, right at the beginning here. And anyway, he replies to this smart-ass thing that Diane says, and he says, fair enough. Usually these things feel like corporate hostage negotiations. And she responds real quick. She says, that's because everyone's trying to market themselves. And Christopher gestures subtly around the restaurant. And this is the showroom floor. And Diane kind of looks around. And nearby tables, you got your polished smiles, strategic touching, performative interests, exhaustion hidden under expensive clothing, right? The superficiality of it all. They're making jokes about it, despite themselves being pretty superficial. Come on, it's kind of a joke, It reminds me of like Larry David from the Curb Your Enthusiasm series, right? These super rich people, they'll go to a super fancy place and they'll criticize all the people around them for being fake, even though they're probably the fakest ones in the building. So it's kind of a play on satire, really, of wealth and rich people and all of this. Anyway, and so, in the background, a woman's laughing far too loudly at something that's probably not very funny. And she, Diane notices this, right? And then Christopher notices her noticing it. And it justifies what he was saying, right? He says, see, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. And the waiter returns with the wine, right? Christopher lets Diane taste the wine first. And she does, and she nods politely. See, now they're doing their formality thing. And then he asks, he says, so how bad was your day? And she says, in response, Diane asks, she says, legally or emotionally? And Christopher responds and says, that answer alone concerns me. And again, she gives a small smile. And she says, 3 timeline disputes, 1 hostile partner, and an associate who cited the wrong appellate decision with the confidence of a televangelist. And Christopher winces. ooh, she's describing how bad work is, and so he winces because he knows what it's like. And he winces, ooh, and he says, Jesus Christ. And she says, exactly. And so they both laugh lightly, because they both kind of know what it's like, you know, because he is an attorney. I don't know if that gets explained later or not. It probably does. But anyway, he's an attorney. She's a law firm consultant. They met on a dating app. They're meeting, you know, this is their first time meeting. And so, of course, this is the kind of conversation in a natural situation like this that they'd be having. Okay? And so now they're laughing, and the awkwardness now is really beginning to dissolve. There's not chemistry necessarily between them, but familiarity, right? They have a common thing that they can just kind of ride on, at least, so while they're trying to get to know each other. And so, you know, an hour or two passes, and the drinks are lower, you know, the menus are gone, the rhythm of the music's smoother, and Christopher has loosened his tie slightly, and he's looking at her. He says, you know what your problem is? And she sighs theatrically. She said, please, I've waited all week to hear this from a man I met online. And Christopher smiles into his drink. You listen like you're preparing rebuttals. And she quickly responds, occupational hazard. And he says, no, defense mechanism. So she takes a sip instead of responding this time, and she's kind of staring him down, trying to figure him out. And he notices everything about her, but presses very little. And that's part of the reason why she hasn't mentally checked out yet, right? And then a nearby table erupts into loud artificial laughter nearby. And Christopher glances over, and he says, 3 dates, maximum. And she said, what is? And he said, that relationship. And before they started weaponizing therapy language against each other, Diana laughs unexpectedly hard at that. And she says, okay, that's actually accurate. And Christopher points subtly. See that guy nodding? That's survival nodding. And she looks over nonchalantly, and she looks back at him and says, he's absolutely right. Another laugh, more natural this time. So they're starting to warm up now, folks. They're starting to feel more comfortable with each other. Natural socialization, if you will, for two very cold people at the end of the day. All right, let me check my Zoom Zooms. 1-800 Zoom Zooms. Okay.